There's a real trick to finding a game that is not only going to tickle the strategic nature of your friends on a games night, but really provide something for your friends who have maybe had a few drinks and never played a game before. But don't worry, we have something that straddles that bridge perfectly. Jacques Zeimet's Cockroach Poker is a masterclass in simplistic but wonderful design.
Cockroach Poker is a very simple game. All we're going to do is we're going to evenly distribute these cards between 2 and 6 players. That's your hand. You're going to see as much of the deck as everybody else. In that hand, you're going to see 8 different types of creepy crawlies: rats, bats, stink bugs, cockroaches, and a plethora of others. Now, with those cards, what you're going to do is you're going to select one, put it face down on the table, and you're going to slide it to someone of your choice. Jon, that is a cockroach.
See, now I have a choice here. Either I can call Taylor on his bluff and say true or false to what he said. As long as I'm right, that card flips face up, goes in front of him, and is going to count against him when it comes to scoring. I get it wrong, comes back to me, goes face up, it's going to count against me into scoring. But the most interesting choice you have is to not say anything, pick that card up, look at it, and pass it on to another player, and then you make a declaration about what that card is. Other player, this is a stink bug.
It's such a clever mechanic.
It's beautiful.
Because the thing is that's what makes this game tick. That's what makes this game so funny. Because as the card swipes through all the players, and 5 people at that table of 6 have seen the card and they've all said a bunch of different things, or maybe they've all said the same thing. Either way, every time someone looks at that card in silence, thinks for a moment and lays it back down and pushes it towards you, it gets tenser and tenser. And if it's pushed towards someone else, you know it's coming to you next.
Yes. It's so wonderful because so quickly any player begins to understand that maybe they will fake how long they consider this. Maybe they'll exaggerate that time or minimize that time. The wager that you're making is so low stakes and so easy to engage on that more than any bluffing game I've ever played, people get it and they begin to make smart moves so quickly. Any player, any age, any experience with games begins to make smart moves, and it entertains the whole table.
It's just poker without all the strategy, without having to learn all the cards in a 52 card deck and what they can become. But more than poker, all of this shuffling around and stuff, the tension that builds, that is so funny. This is such a funny game. In fact, I think it might be the funniest game I've played. Not because the cards themselves are particularly funny. They don't say things like Cards Against Humanity does, or it doesn't make you act in the way that Spyfall necessarily does with a roll or anything. But it does make you act. Because at some point in that game, not only will you start doing these bluffs really creatively, but this game, because it's so simple and so fun and just making you laugh non-stop, people start acting up. I remember distinctly playing a game of this where we started getting at the manual and in silence just pointing aggressively at images of the creatures or doing weird things to describe it with a mime, just to mess with people, just to kind of break the tension at the table.
And it's wonderful because as all of these tools are being deployed to make the game more and more entertaining, you're building towards a very specific and relatively rare conclusion, which is there's only one loser and everybody else at the table wins.
I love that so much, right? Because it's a snappy conclusion, but also you can just see the fear building up in someone's place as they amass cards in front of them. See, if you get 4 of the same type of card in front of you, you lose. That's it. And so what's going to happen is you're going to get to that 3rd card. You're going to have 3 stink bugs in front of you. And someone's going to just slide across a card to you and they're going to say, this is a stink bug. And you don't really have much of an option. Because if you say it isn't a stink bug and you flip it up, man, you're dead. So you just say it is a stink bug and you're getting it wrong, and then they side you another and it's the same thing over and over and over. And it kind of has a thing where everyone at the table can start ganging up on a player, except for one really smart thing. When you've received a card, you've made that last guess on something, that's when you get to distribute a card back out.
And it means that you grasp just that little bit more control over the table, and it puts you back in the game. Cockroach Poker has no time for anyone being left out of the fun. I just cannot speak to how much not only this game provides a platform for people at the table to be entertaining, but the way that it doesn't let anyone get lost in the milieu. There is no looking towards the group comedian, or if there is, it is only for a moment so that you can help participate in this wonderful in-joke that builds over the course of a game. I have this vivid memory of us kind of putting cards down on the table and shell gaming them around and being deeply unclear on the receiving end of whether the person knew which cards they had put and knew what card they were handing across to you. And then the second consideration, whether them knowing what that card is even matters to the bluff that they're telling you. It's this comedy of errors. You have so much information in your hand. You have as much of the deck as anybody else does, plus all of the cards laid out on the table in front of everyone, that you can start making educated guesses about the probabilities that somebody is lying to you. But as soon as you begin to get confident about that, all you do is set yourself up for a slapstick failure where you are just so assured in your decision and proven to be completely wrong, and it's funny for the whole table every single time.
Cockroach Poker is just an engine for humour. And within that engine, it's so finely tuned that every single part of it is either building the tension or releasing the tension, and that is key. I think Cockroach Poker is a perfect game for what it's meant to be. And I think Cockroach Poker is a game that anybody can play, because if you're drunk off your head, it's a good little time just getting it wrong over and over. If you're with a family who doesn't really play games, this is something they can pick up and they'll get in an instant. And you know, it's fun to laugh at dad getting it wrong. It's funny. If you're playing this with veterans, people who have played Twilight Imperium more times than you can count, those kinds of players will sit there stoically and they'll be so certain of what they're doing every step of the way, and that is so much fun to dismantle. So all these types of players can be at the same table and you'll get a different game every time, but it'll always be fun.
It will always be fun. If I had one criticism of Cockroach Poker, it would be that the amount of fun you have coming out of it is maybe a little bit proportional to how much you put in. There is an element of the game, we were talking about the kinds of jokes that we were making with friends, and those really only come out of making an effort to try and make other people laugh. I think that's where the game really shines. I think that's where we had the best time, but that was reliant on us coming up with those bits. I think exactly like you say, Cockroach Poker is an engine, and it lets you run that machine for as much as you pump into it. But if you aren't willing to go that extra step, it's going to be a good time. Not a great time, but a good time. But it gives you so much of an invitation to take it a step further. And if you just give it that little bit of effort, oh, it's incredible. It is one of the best games I've ever played.
If you're looking for a game like Snake Oil or Spyfall or Cards Against Humanity that's funny, but want that little bit step up, something that lets you be a bit more yourself in there, this is it. Cockroach Poker is a fantastic game. It's a near perfect game for what it wants to be, and I think Jon agrees with that.
Absolutely. The one thing I would say is if you're trying to pick up a copy in Australia at the moment, there seems to be a slight shortage. You can, however, quite easily pick up versions of the, you can quite easily pick up the German version of the game, which is called Crawlies Poker, I believe, and the rules are so simple and there's no text on the card, so you'll have no difficulty playing it whatsoever.
And literally every rule has been in this video, so you're ready to go.
Yes.
Big Crawlies Poker energy.
It's wonderful. I could go for a round, so
okay, sure.
what if I told you that this was a